exercise, right? Kind of opens eyes a little bit. Yeah, you're.
All right. My list was visit Stockholm, which turned some heads. Voice act in something at some point. Can't imagine why. And the third one was start a punk band. Commence laughter.
Yes.
And kind of what he said, Nick said, when you're describing your bucket list, there is kind of that anxiety where you feel pretty vulnerable and exposed, talking about your inner desires, and people will never really be able to understand why you want to do those things, because it's weird. Like, why would I want to visit Stockholm? That's a whole conversation for itself. So it feels strange putting that out there, and also, like you said, it's kind of difficult to really sit down and think about what do I actually want to do, because you get so absorbed in what you have to do, and you put anything you wanted to do away so long ago. It's just not really, it's not there anymore. So you have to reach in and find it and go, 3 years ago when I wasn't stressed out every second of the day, what did I want to do? And then it just comes in, and it feels really great.
That was perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks everyone that shared. I believe it's safe to say, kind of the common theme, right, was just the excitement that came with sharing your heart. And if it were starting a punk band, visiting Stockholm, jumping out of an airplane, starting practice with your brother, or just being alive and free to have that bucket list. The common denominator there is just the freedom to exist in the moment and understand, as we look at one another, the uniqueness of each individual, as they are a unique expression of Him, and as we are called to be. So the bucket list exercise, right, as exciting as it is to kind of share your heart and what you want to do, is so exciting. But moving past that too, just to see the uniqueness of each person and what motivates them, what gets them excited, right? And what do we have in common? Where are we different? Those things are so exciting as we move into conversation with people, with a complete stranger. We're going to watch a video in a moment, and I really want that to be what you kind of see in the video. See where people just meet people in the most bizarre of places. And again, the video, it'll make a little more sense when we share it in a moment, where we have the capacity to meet and just in the middle of nowhere, right? And just day-to-day conversation, be it at work, be it at the mall, be it at school, be it with just the cashier, the clerk, and Kelly and I were just yesterday. We were at Dick's Sporting Goods, and the guy's name was Chris. And they have, it's pretty neat, on their thing it tells their passion right below it. It actually tells the clerk's passion, which I thought was pretty clever. So I noted that. I said, Chris, you like to play football? And just conversation broke out, and it was just really unique to be able to have that conversation with a complete stranger, with the understanding that we are all unique and we are all perfect according to Him, and to have that conversation through that paradigm and through those lenses, to see somebody with those lenses was really unique. So again, with the bucket list, that was kind of really cool to share and hear one another's heart. Hebrews 12, 1 through 2, it says, "Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and sin that which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus." And I'm going to propose, and go with me here, I'm going to propose that as we fix our eyes on Jesus, as we turn the chairs, right, and we look at one another, is that not fixing our eyes on Jesus? Just as the New Testament says that He now lives and resides within us, is that not fixing your eyes on Jesus as you look to the person next to you and have that conversation? As you have that conversation with Chris at Dick's Sporting Goods about his passion of football, is that not fixing your eyes on Jesus? So run with endurance the race that is set before us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So again, fixing our eyes on Jesus, and again, for the joy set before Him endured the cross. Again, I want to propose too, the joy set before him. What was the joy set before him? Any ideas? Throw out there. Jordan.
Me.
Say that loud.
Joy set before him.
You.
Me.
You. That was perfect. Yeah, yell it. Yell it. Go ahead. I wanna hear it.
Me.
So again, who is the joy set? Who is the joy set before him? We've had this conversation here at Grace Life before, but I think it's important to note that you, Jordan, were the joy set before him. You, Rieta, were the joy set before him. Every single person in here was that joy set before him. He despised the shame and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He endured the cross for the joy set before him. You, each and every one of you, were the joy that was set before him. That's important to note. And as we watch the video and understanding that the person next to us, as we enter into the conversation, that person was the joy that was set before him. And don't miss the miracle in that happens for you. Because not only is the person next to you that joy that was set before him, and accordingly is the joy that's set before you, but you are also that same joy as somebody turns and looks towards you. Don't miss the miracle that happens for yourself. You are the joy that is set before the person next to you. So as you enter into the conversation, you get to enter into that knowing that they are the joy that's set for you. But in turn, you are the joy that is set before them. Right? Just as we were all uniquely the joy that is set before him as he went to the cross for us. So what does it look like for the truths of this scripture to be realized here on this earth? Right? Because there's a lot of encumbrances and things that so easily entangle us, as the Hebrews 12 verse 1 kind of alludes to. Right? A lot of things that entangle us in this life, where we lose sight of that bucket list. Right? We lose sight of conversation with one another. I'm going to be really honest with you. This past week, for me, was a really hard week. For those that know, I lost my mother 2 months ago to a very long, drawn-out battle with cancer, and it was really difficult. It's really difficult. So this past week for me, it looked like a lot of encumbrances and things to overcome. And I'm so thankful for the joy that was set before him. That was my mother. And I now have that confident hope of where she is. And I also get to move into conversations with others with the understanding that they are the joy that was set before me. Right? So there's a lot of moments, happenstances, circumstances in this life that we lose sight of that joy. Right? But I'm so thankful for the truth of the fact that I am the joy that was set before him. My mother was the joy that was set before him. And because of that truth, I know where my mother is today, and I'm so thankful for that. Kelly and I, this Wednesday, will be May 18th. 9 months ago, we were excited for May 18th because that was supposed to be the day that baby Elle was born. And had a miscarriage, and it was difficult. It's very difficult for both of us. So as we approached Mother's Day, not only was it difficult for the both of us, her mother-in-law, my mother, recently passed, and but we're supposed to be celebrating the fact that Kelly was, 37, 38 weeks pregnant, and we're going to have a baby this coming Wednesday. So again, in looking at those scriptures and understanding, it asks us to lay aside the weights that so easily entangle us. I'm not saying that those things don't happen, right? We can't be emotional about those things, because let me be very honest. This past week has been very emotional for me. It's been hard. And that's okay to have those emotions, but to not lose sight of the joy that was set before him. And it's an understanding that those things are okay. We can have those difficult times, those circumstances, but thank God those circumstances do not create the joy in our lives, right? Those are not the things that matter. They are not the constants in our lives. And I'm thankful for the constant, which is the joy that we understand and know. So I'd argue that we all just what we all just did was a perfect demonstration of the living and active Word, carrying out this verse before us in conversations that we had. So as we watch this video, I encourage you to take particular note of exactly how the command is not at all a command to go do, a command to go fix our eyes on Jesus, but rather a command to go be. and just be who we are inherently as we are as unique individuals and have those conversations. And in this video, see how these complete strangers find themselves finding joy in the moment as they look to one another. They are quite literally fixing their eyes on Jesus as each of us is a unique expression of him.
I'm Nikki.
Hi.
I have never, ever been in a ball pit before.
What?
You've never been in the ball pit?
No, never.
You gotta go.
No, I've seen them, but I've never been in one.
You know, I remember these ball pits because my kids threw up in them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's see.
Okay, this is a good one. Share 3 things on your bucket list. First one is to go skydiving.
I want to go skydiving.
Have you ever had those dreams where you're just like floating and, you know, you're flying and everything? Scuba diving is just exactly that.
Don't you get afraid of drowning or being underwater or getting attacked by an octopus or any of those things?
I want to learn curling,
What is it?
like that Winter Olympic sport.
Oh, all right, where you slide the
Yeah,
up thing.
and then it's like bowling and sweeping.
Find one thing you have in common. Do you play sports?
Not currently.
I play soccer, so.
Soccer.
Yeah. All right.
Actually, I play the drums. Do you play any instruments?
I quit everything I ever tried.
All right.
Actually, fun fact, these aren't real teeth. Yeah.
I have a flipper tooth.
Really?
Ah! Oh my God! No! I can't. Wait.
What?
My front tooth.
Oh my gosh.
What? You don't even understand. I swear to God, I feel like someone planted us here for this reason.
Destiny.
Describe the first time you fell in love.
Oh, I think it was kindergarten. I don't remember his name, but he was beautiful.
I was in the Navy,
You were in the Navy?
and my husband was in the Navy. Long story short, before he ever kissed me or we were ever really together, he told me he loved me. 24 years later, we're more in love and we're better friends than even from the very beginning.
That's true love in its finest. Talk about someone who inspires you.
It's all right to talk about somebody that's a religious character.
Yeah, why not? This is our ball pit. We can talk about whoever we want, right?
Jesus.
All right.
Just my peers. They're all creative in their own ways and have their own realities and own lessons. I just grow from everybody else's as well as my own. Martin Luther King, I think, because the fact that we're sitting in this box together is a big deal, you know?
You know who inspires me, believe it or not, is my daughter. She is everything I ever wanted to be.
All right. Talk about the experience that changed your life. Oh, that's a good one. After my wife decided that it was time that we split, I started to have a different perspective on life. I saw women differently. I saw relationships differently. I think I became more appreciative of women.
How old did you say you are? 20?
Yeah.
Okay. At the age of 21, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And it pulled the rug out from all my plans. It really changes the way you look at things.
My grandmother has it.
Who does?
My grandmother.
There's our comment.
We found the comment.
We found the comment.
That's why I was still here. We found the comment.
Oh, create a secret handshake. Okay.
Okay, but nothing was spit.
Okay, so that.
I need both hands.
Okay.
So this.
And then whoever gets on the top takes a flag.
Oh, now I forgot what it is.
And then like maybe a little twitch in the middle.
1, 2,
1, 2.
High 10. All right, we did it.
Awesome. I actually had a lot of fun. I was a little bit nervous because normally you don't hang out with strangers in ball pits. I got to learn some pretty cool things about you.
It was really nice to meet you.
You too.
I hope I see you
take a
again.
hug.
Okay, I love it.
I'm really impressed by you. I was worried that I would start talking to you like a mom. I don't know if I did.
No.
But
Nah, you
No.
didn't. Trust me. You did good.
Soul Pancake, subscribe.
Normally, you don't hang out with strangers in a ball pit, right? I can't say that I've ever hung out with a stranger in a ball pit, but maybe it takes an exercise just like that extreme perhaps, to see what joy they had to stop, to talk about. Let's talk about the encumbrances and the things that so easily, the weights that entangle us. They're in the middle of a busy, crowded, street, and here's this ball pit, and I'm sure they're kind of looking around at one another and going, okay. Can you imagine the first guinea pig that jumped into the ball pit, right? How uncomfortable that felt until somebody joined in that conversation as they moved in, the craziness of stepping into a ball pit with somebody, moving into that conversation with somebody, and having conversation just like that, right? How great, and to see the joy on the people's faces, they were able to connect in this intimate way, and see Jesus and the person next to them. And that's what I propose, that in those conversations, they see Jesus and the person next to them. You were the joy that was set before him. Each and every one of you. Again, you and you and you. You are all the joy that was set before him. The scriptures testify to it over and over again, that we are, in fact, that joy that was set before him. If that is true, if we are the joy that is set before him, would it not stand to reason that the person next to you is, in fact, the joy set before you, right? In those conversations, that is the joy that is set before him. And as he exists and lives within us, the person next to you then becomes the joy that is set before you, is to move into that conversation and have that conversation. The person in the ball pit, the person at work, the person who is battling cancer, the person that is writing for Friedreich's ataxia, they are all the joy that is set before you. If God is real and he lives within us, the person next to you is the joy that is set before us. Life doesn't exist in the happenstance, in the moments. Life exists in the conversations that are joy, that are set before each and every one of us. So as we kind of look at the scripture, and it talks about the joy that is set before him, I've heard a lot of people, and I know Herb has kind of talked about the difference in joy and happiness, right? He's had that conversation before, and understanding that joy is a place where we find ourselves because of what he has done within us. It's a place that we live in because of what he has done within us. So as I share with you the happenstance, right? Happiness actually gets its root from the origin of the word happenstance. So it's something that just happens, right? And far too often we don't have control over the happenstance in our lives. And too often the happiness, the happenstance in our lives, in fact, is not real happy. It might look a lot like this past week for me. And everybody deals with that in some capacity, right? But the reality is that those circumstances, the happenstances in our lives, do not dictate the joy in our lives, because we know joy because he lives within us, right? And as we understand that truth and we look to the person next to us, that transcends all the circumstances. That transcends all the happenstance. And we can move into that conversation and be vulnerable. The young lady shared, I was diagnosed at 21 years old that I had MS. And they connected on that, her saying, my grandmother has MS. And to be able to move into that conversation, and as uncomfortable as that might be, as we bring up those circumstances, right? But to be able to move into that place of joy and connecting on this intimate level with a person and understanding that they are uniquely made just as you are, how powerful that conversation can be. My brother shared that I'm in chiropractic school, 3.5-year program. I've got just less than a year left. I could not be more excited. Spent quite a bit of money to go through that curriculum, and I'm going to share with y'all and let y'all in on a little secret, and save y'all a lot of money. Okay, so take really good notes. One of the biggest things, and they talk to us about in class, right, as a patient, right, as somebody presents to your office, the biggest thing is the history. The history is everything. As you take a history with a patient, it's everything. In fact, every single medical journal, every single medical book, the chiropractic books, they're all the same. You still study, the same curriculum. The curriculum is the exact same in that regard in regards to taking a history. They all point to the fact that they give it a number, a numerical value for an objective reason. They say it is 90%. The history, taking a history, having that conversation is 90% of what you're doing as you move towards, for us, it looks the diagnosis, right? As you prepare to give a differential diagnosis, a diagnosis list, the history, the health history intake, the physical, that conversation as you move into intimately with that person, one-on-one, wherever that might be, that is 90% of what you do. So all that other stuff, that's all ancillary, and that is all dictated by what you find in that history. 90%. It's pretty big. And so for the past 2.5 years at nauseum, that has been ingrained into my head. And what we use, and this might be familiar for some people if you have any background there, use an acronym, OPQRST. OPQRST. It kind of creates the scaffolding or the framework for which we walk into that history, right? What does OPQRST stand for? It stands for onset, right? When did it happen? When did this, whatever that problem, if it, low back pain, neck pain, right? We'll go there since I'm a chiropractor and that's all people go see a chiropractor for. When did it happen? Was there a mechanism of injury, right? What happened that caused that injury? Oh, onset. P. Is there anything that makes it worse? Provocative. Is there anything that makes that condition worse? When you move or do a certain movement, or if you do this, if you exercise, does it make it worse? When you lay a certain way, does it make it worse? And then there's a series of orthopedic tests and all those things where you exacerbate that symptom and it leads you down this hole and you go this way, that. The other part is that palliative, OP, provocative, palliative. Is there anything that makes it better? Have you tried ice when you don't exercise, or when you do this, when you do that, does it make it better? Q, the quality of pain, right? The quality of pain. Is it sharp, dull, achy pain? OPQR, does it radiate? Does the pain travel at all? So you have the pain here. Do you feel it going down to the arms? Is low back pain? Do you feel it radiating or traveling down into the legs at all? R, S, OPQRS, sight, right? One of the big things you ask the patient, where do you feel the pain? I want you to point to it best you can. Show me where you feel the pain. And best they can locate, okay, it's right here. And so you as the doctor are making these mental notes as you're working through this scaffolding, working through this history, which is so important to arrive at that differential diagnosis of what is going on with this patient. OPQRS, sight, T, time. Is there a time of the day where it's better or worse? Do you feel it more in the morning when you wake up? Right? That might, maybe that's RA. It could be rheumatoid arthritis for a patient that presents to you that has joint pain, these things they present to them. Or it could be AS, ankylosing spondylitis. The list goes on and on and on. So that scaffolding, the OPQRST, leads us to a diagnosis, right? As I've sat in so many history physicals, as I've now moved into outpatient clinic, I see patients off the street. It no longer has to be just family and friends that I get to practice on and come away with a few sore necks so I can have the practice and expertise that I now have to be able to specifically adjust and know exactly what I'm doing. I've moved to outpatient now where people quite literally come off the street just as somebody would at a normal chiropractic office. Still overseen by the doctor there, but I see these patients and they come in. I had two this past Friday morning. And as I moved into that conversation, that health history, I was able to have, the context. Obviously, I'm leading to figure out exactly what their chief complaint is and why it's happening, what it is. But I began to think how that relates to life as we move into conversations, right? As these people move into conversations, as we moved into conversations with one another, something as simple and silly as what's the top 3 things on your bucket list. You get to move into that conversation, and as you see the joy that is set before you, that is the person you're having the conversation with, and in turn, that same truth that exists for you as you were the joy that's set before them, not missing that truth, that reality that exists for you. As you do that health history intake with the person next to you, are you not in turn moving to the same thing, going down the same list and moving to the differential diagnosis? So in continuing that thought, you get to the end and you have a series of your differential diagnosis, right? After you do the whole health history intake, it takes about 3 hours. And in my opinion, it's entirely too long. It's part of the hoops that you jump through when you're down there. No good person actually wants to sit at a doctor's office for 3 hours, but that's the way we do things currently. And so I was there for 6 hours doing health history intake with these two individuals. And at the end, you do the differential diagnosis list. What is that? It's a top 3, 4 things that you think it could be, beginning with the number one thing, right? This is what it is. This is what I believe it to be. This is number 1, number 2, number 3. And so as we move into conversation with one another, do you not also have a differential diagnosis list by the time you get to that into that conversation, right? And the reality is that differential diagnosis, what we find, the truth at the end of every conversation, the differential diagnosis would be clear through every point of contact that person next to you, that joy that's set before you, the joy that was set before him, that differential diagnosis will look like, 1, you are perfect. The person next to you is perfect. They're complete. They are whole. So as we move into the differential diagnosis of conversation with a person, number 1, you are perfect. You're perfect. You are the joy that was set before him. Number 2, you are his. Number 3, you are loved. And number 4, you are the joy that was set before him. The joy that was set before him, that he endured the cross, despised the shame, because that differential diagnosis, that health history physical that he did through each and every single one of us, as we do in conversation with a person, found that you are perfect and you are worthy, that I would endure the cross and go to the cross for you so you can experience that love, experience that perfect completeness and wholeness that we understand and know. It finds you perfect every single time. Every time. So as a doctor to be, and as I move into that role, right, everybody has a different chief complaint as they present to the office, and it is my goal to run through that whole scaffolding, the OPQRST, and find out what their problem is, what that differential diagnosis list is. And that's important too, but I don't want to miss in that same conversation. And yes, I play the role of the doctor, but I also want to play the role of the doctor that finds that person perfect, that differential diagnosis list that says you're perfect. And moving past, yes, and I want to be careful here, right? Yes, I want to address their symptom, I want to address what's going on, but moving past that and moving into the conversation that says you are perfect, you are holy, you are blameless, you are perfect because he is perfect and he now lives within you. So as the table turns and the chairs turn towards one another, move into conversation with the understanding that the person next to you is the very person who Jesus endured the cross for. The person you are talking to is his joy. And not moving from a place of obligation, but from a place of understanding that your DNA, your very fundamental being, your makeup, moving into conversation which is congruent with who you inherently are. And not missing the reality that as you look to the person next to you as a joy that is set before you, understand that they are in turn looking to you. You are the same joy that's set before others and set before him. You are his joy. You are his joy. Every single time, that is what you come to the reality of at the end of that history physical, right? That spiritual history physical. Every single time, we have the same differential diagnosis list, and God says you are perfect. I don't care what chief complaint that you're presenting with, right? And too many people, and Herb talks about it all the time. They have so much invested in their idea of God or where they've went wrong and what they're doing wrong. They have so much invested, right? Go with me, in that chief complaint. But you don't understand. My back really hurts. I hear you. I hear you. Your back hurts. You don't understand, but I did this. Okay, I hear you, but I won't entertain the deception that says anything other than you are perfect. You are holy. You are blameless because your Father in heaven is perfect, holy, and blameless, and he has made those things true about you. So again, you're perfect. That's the differential diagnosis, and I want that to be, now again, not as a place of obligation, not as a thing to go do, but a place to live from because of who you already inherently are. So as you move into conversation with people, we move, from church, right? And that conversation looks like the cashier, it looks like the clerk, it looks like people at work, it looks like people at school, it looks like just random conversations in a ball pit, right? As we move into that conversation, to see the person as perfect, holy, and blameless. Thoughts? Anyone? Thoughts? Gary, here you go.
Herb said this, I'm only repeating it, that the question he asked was, what are the steps to love? He asked this a number of years ago, but it stuck with me. And just to cut it short, the first step is to know. Like you're saying, you need to know about that person. In the conversation pit, you need to know about that person. In the conversation you're encouraging us into, you need to know the person to love them. I personally needed to know that my Father and His Son and the Spirit loved me. And I lived my life like I didn't know that most of my life. I know that now. But that was my first step to loving Him. What's the second step? There is none. You don't love anything or anybody that you don't know. So I'll sit in that conversation pit with anybody, and I want to be known. It's part of the way He designed me. But I also want to know, because my deepest desire is to love and to be loved.
Anyone else? Jordan? Hang on one second. I'm going to get the mic. Thank you, Gary.
Part of my bucket list was probably coming to Grace Life, and without even being aware of it, was being known. And I'm really, really high strung, and ADD can look like me forgetting things and getting lost going home. But also, as silly and immature and fun as I am, I have this internal conflict of, I'm a mother of 4 and a wife, and I'm worried about my kids' emotional and physical and school homework and getting dinner done and keeping the house clean. And when I'm really high strung, there's no joy in that. It can be very just the 90 to nothing, like, oh my God, we got to get this done. And so part of coming to Grace Life, and somebody else, I think, calling me sweetheart, I won't throw him under the bus like he does me. Right now we're looking for a house, and I just get stressed out because it's not big enough or it's not nice enough, and I want it to reflect, me and blah, blah, blah. And he says, why do you do this? Like, slow down and enjoy it. So part of my bucket list after the conversation ended with him was being okay with me and realizing that I am perfect, even when I am screaming and I can't calm down and just enjoy life. And sometimes I think, like you were talking about circumstance and happenstances, when you see a patient, when someone's in pain, whether it's physical or emotional, you're self-absorbed. You can't see past your pain. You can't slow down when you're like, oh my God, we have 60 days to move, and we got to have, a truck, and we got to have the money, and we got to have a house. You can't, you're self-absorbed. You can't see past the yucky. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing that the joy set before him, I happen to be married to, slowly, and everybody asked me when we started dating, he's 9 years younger than me. Everybody's kind of like, what do you see in this 21-year-old? And I honestly never knew. He's pretty, he kisses good. I'm being real here. But it would be these things that I never could put into words, but it's just as simple as him going, stop letting this stress you out and just enjoy it. Don't let the circumstances, don't let it be a pain. But when you are in pain, whatever that looks like, you can't, if your number 7's hurting, Nathan, okay, your lower lumbar, you can't appreciate that your left arm still can wave or that your eyesight is still good, because all you can focus on is number 7.
Right.
Make the pain stop. And sometimes entering those conversations, you do see a little bit of Jesus, whether it's your spouse or some weirdo in a ball pit sharing life with you. And I would have called them weirdos. The little girl that fell in love in kindergarten.
Anyone else? One more. Anyone else? All right. So, Father, we come to you just thankful for the diagnosis, Father. Thankful for the diagnosis that finds us perfect. That walks past the chief complaints, walks past the circumstances, into our lives, into conversation, Father, into the craziness of a ball pit in the middle of nowhere with strangers, and diagnoses the person next to us, across the table from us, across the ball pit from us, and says that person is perfect. Because you are perfect, and you live within us. And in turn, Father, the understanding and knowing that because that person is perfect, it's because they have been diagnosed as perfect according to you in them. Father, we are perfect. I am perfect. And it becomes personal, Father, so I can live from that place and knowing and understanding that I am perfect. And from that, I am free to look to the person next to me and see them for who they are. See them for the joy that they are. The joy that is set before me as I move into conversations, as I move from this place. Father, we just thank you for that truth. We thank you for that reminder.